For your listening pleasure, here's Polizzi and Rose, covering the week of media, marketing, and digital content news. This Old Marketing. Take it away, boys.
Well, hello, my friends. This is Robert Rose, and welcome to episode number 367 of This Old Marketing for Friday, March 17th. Yeah, that's St. Patrick's Day. I hope you're sober at this point. And with me, as always, is my pal, my colleague, and a guy who didn't bank at Silicon Valley Bank, Mr. Joe Polizzi. How are you? Are you feeling confident about the U.S. financial system?
Oh my! I have some people that I know that had their money in that bank. And I was watching and following this on social media, and you could see the terror. Like there's one example. I know we're going to talk about a little bit of this later because it is newsworthy. But there was one person in particular who started a media company, very successful, multi-million-dollar company, and I believe had 7 figures in the bank. It said literally they went to their account and it was gone. Like,
oh my God.
Could you imagine?
Really?
Said it was the worst day of his life.
Wow.
So, yeah, I'm I mean, we're not going to get into cryptocurrency or anything, but this is the reason why Bitcoin was created. It came out of the 2008, 2009 financial crisis because of the fact that there's some shady stuff going on, and I don't think that the Fed was aware that they could break some of these banks just by raising rates so quickly, but they did.
Yeah,
and SVB didn't really. If you look at how this happened, because they basically bought bonds and then the rates went so fast and those bonds became big losers quickly, and they needed cash. And you're like, well, they didn't do anything risky. This wasn't any kind of scheme.
Right.
I don't know. I can go on forever. I don't understand how the crypto industry gets so much hate, and at the same time you have things like what's going on with Credit Suisse right now, and all the horrible things that bank is doing, and they're being bailed out in a lot of cases. I mean, what? I don't know. Don't get me started. I'm already on a rant.
Well, we're going to talk about it. It's our first news item when we get to the news. So
we'll talk. I totally jumped right into news. But anyways, St. Patrick's Day, we should be drinking and not concerned about little things like people losing their life savings.
Yeah, it's a little crazy. I mean, I think St. Patrick's Day will be a big I don't know, celebration is the right word, but certainly, it's one of those. I think, thank God it's Friday sort of thing.
Well, it only affects a very small group of people. And I think most of the people listening to this, might not even, I think it's a pretty big news story. So I think people are aware that it's going on, but, obviously we'll cover a lot more things. But I was going to ask, do you celebrate St. Patrick's Day? Is this a thing or no?
I do not typically. No, and as we were talking in pre-show, I didn't even really remember that it was Thanksgiving or St. Patrick's Day. I just had no recollection of it at all. So that tells you how much I celebrate it. Yeah.
We have our friends group and then all their kids over at the same time. So
it's like a whole thing.
Yeah, it's not one of those parties that gets out of hand with drinking or anything, but we just have a very good time. We do obviously corned beef, cabbage, the whole, the whole thing. It's a big deal. And we've got a scavenger hunt set up, and it's a thing, and it has been for quite some time. As we celebrate my Irish heritage of 12.5%.
Right.
50% Italian, and then the rest of it's sort of a Heinz 57. But I do have Irish in my background. You do not, I don't think. You're not.
I probably do somewhere. I mean, my whole, starting with my mother, going all the way back, is Scottish. So, and pure Scottish, right? She came, as I like to say, she came over with the Beatles. So so that whole, I mean, but well, my mother would roll over in her grave if I started to talk about how much Irish was in the family, because the Scots and the Irish don't typically get along very well. So there's that. So maybe other than a fondness for whiskey, there probably isn't much. There isn't much in common there.
No, but I know there's a number of people, like I was telling you before the show, I got a couple people that wanted to have meetings and talk on Friday. And we're like, okay, do you not know there's two, like most people from what I can gather are really not working. If they're working on today, they're really not working. You've got St. Patrick's Day, and then you've got the second day of March Madness.
That's true too. Yeah. I mean, are you a bracket guy?
Yeah, I do it every year. I do. I absolutely do a losing bracket every year. I am consistently not finishing anywhere close to the money in the brackets that I do. I do two. I have two groups that I've done for a long time. I continue to do them, and I generally compete for last place because I pick long shots.
Yeah.
And then you realize, like, I look at them and I'm like, oh, I've got a 6 and a 4 and a 2 and a 3, and I got no 1 seeds left because I predict them going out early. And then I realize, well, this is kind of dumb because this is silly. Why am I doing this? But one of these years, it's going to pay off handsomely.
Right,
$20-$40. I'm going to win. It's going to be something incredible.
You're gonna at least make up 0.0001% of what you've spent in some of these pools.
It is nice because I do pay a little bit more attention to the games. And actually it's funny because you and I have talked about the rise of gambling, especially here in Ohio, since sports betting is legalized now.
Yeah.
I understand why the NFL and Major League Baseball and NBA want this to happen and have these great partnerships, because people pay more attention when they're gambling on the games.
That's right.
That's a whole nother thing about the downfall of our society. But, good for those organizations, right?
Good.
Very, very happy about this. Yeah. Anything else going on with you?
Yeah, it's been a crazy busy couple of weeks here, which is, as we were talking in pre-show, is a good thing. It's been a little bit overwhelming in terms of how much stuff there is to do, but I'm not going to complain about it. It's spring, or getting near spring. The solstice is next week, so. It's good to be busy.
Yeah,
put it that way.
Well, I like March is a good month for me because, as you know, we've talked about this many times before. February is always a down month, which is why I travel in February, because I get the blues. And now as we move in and the time changes and it's lighter, it was getting dark at 5:00 in Cleveland, and I was like, this is terrible. Like, nobody wants this. And now I think it was almost like 7:30 or something yesterday. Like, this is feeling good. We've got more hours in the day. I see the sun. That's a nice thing to be able to do that. So I'm feeling good about, the run up to, got 6 weeks until Creator Economy Expo, and sponsorships are going real well for that. Need a few more people. I think we're gonna hit a good one with this one. So I'm looking forward to it.
Well, that's good.
Yeah,
fantastic.
Of course, you're speaking. I get to see you. We're gonna do a podcast there. Probably. We'll probably be drinking while we do it. I don't know how people feel about that, but doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter. We're gonna do it anyway.
We're at the point where we don't care anymore.
That's right.
We do what we want. It is such a nice. Like I look at some of the I don't know, I could call them kids. They're not kids, Gen Z, let's say, that are breaking into this whole content marketing, content creator thing, and they're worried about all the things. I'm like, I'm so glad I don't have to go back and care about what people think anymore. It's like, do you do that? Are you past the point where I know you care, but you don't think about your business decisions and really care what people think anymore, do you?
Well, I'm not quite sure how to answer that. The answer is yes, I do care. But if you're asking whether or not I'm worried about what people think because of decisions that I'm passionate about making, the answer is no. Right? So I don't. I'll put it this way. Yes, the older I get, the more confident I get in some of my decisions that don't necessarily have input or approval from others. Is that? I don't even know if that's the right way to put it, but it's yeah.
So you're saying you do care what people think, but you don't have. It's no basis for you making a decision.
That's right.
You do what
that's
you
right.
want.
I mean, and except for
your lovely wife, I'm assuming. Like it.
Oh,
that's different.
That's different. That's a different thing.
Yeah, just everyone, so you know. Yeah,
yeah.
I mean, I probably should couch this with what I'm talking about here is everyone but my wife.
That's right. Yes, that's a whole.
Definitely care
that's
what
a different
she
thing.
thinks.
Actually,
I almost always ask for permission. I like, hey, honey, I'm gonna do this. Can I? Can I put this on the calendar? Because I'm not allowed to. I don't know if you know this. I'm not allowed to touch the calendar. It's a big deal when I put something on the calendar.
Oh yeah, I am not allowed to do our social calendar. So I just leave that alone. Anything else? I mean, sometimes I've had silly things, doctor's appointments and those sorts of things. I can do that, but anything that requires socialization, that's purely the entertainment director's job.
Oh yeah,
and it's not. It's definitely not my job.
Yeah, I lost. There was a time when we both did those things, and I lost my calendar privileges. I'm not going to go into why that happened, but it did.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
we're both.
It just takes one.
Yeah,
it just takes one.
All right,
it just takes one. Yes. Let's get to the news.
Let's do this thing. Yeah.
Yeah, let's do this. Let's fun. So we are going to talk about some fun things today. But we're not going to start with necessarily something fun, but it is important. We're going to start with the idea of Silicon Valley Bank and what's going on with that whole, whatever you want to call it. Yep. We'll also talk about the fact that is Meta going to be too big to fail? There's been some recent layoffs there, so we'll definitely talk a little more about that. And then Ryan Reynolds, yes, you know that Ryan Reynolds, the just ridiculously handsome and unfairly handsome and talented comedic actor, has sold his company to T-Mobile. And we'll talk a little bit about what that means for marketing and how he was able to position that in such a great way. Then, yes, this week, ChatGPT-4 came in, as well as some new tools from Google, and we'll talk a little bit about what that might mean for the evolution and how much bigger and better and bolder ChatGPT-4 is. And then, if we have time, which we probably won't because we'll talk a lot about the other stuff, but if we have time, we'll talk about Snapchat and how it's made its content guidelines now public, which is a really interesting thing to do for that social media network. And then we'll get into some commentary, and both of us have commentaries over, online or streaming media. Joe's going to talk a little bit about everything, everywhere, all the time, all at once, everywhere on the basically, that movie that seemed to win every Oscar.
7 of 11. Yeah,
7 of 11 is amazing. And then I want to talk a little bit about I'm going to rave about The Last of Us, which, of course, many of you know comes from a video game. So, a chock-a-block full show, as it were. Don't you think? Don't you think, Joe? Don't you think that this is a...
Did you watch the Oscars? We didn't talk about it.
I did.
So.
I did.
Did you? I saw that the ratings were up something like 18%. So either people were thinking that there was going to be another scandal like the slap last year, or they just wanted to see Jimmy Kimmel and some of the... They did seem to nominate everyone this year. Everyone gets a nomination. It's like 72 Best Picture nominations.
It was a lot. Yeah, it was definitely, and it was very. This was almost my rant this week, but one of the things that I really wanted to rant about was that I don't know if did you watch the Oscars?
I did. We rarely ever do,
Yeah.
but we decided that this year, and you know, probably the reason why is because our youngest is really into the movies and films and likes to talk about it. So we're like, okay, let's go. We'll do this.
Yeah.
But yeah, I did enjoy it. I have one take on it, but go ahead.
Yeah. Well, I was just going to say that you know, there. I don't know if you saw or noticed the ads, the absolute native advertising that was going on in the middle of the Oscars, especially the Disney one, where they came out. Two people came out to announce an award, and they didn't announce an award. They basically, it was the star, the new star of the Disney movie Little Mermaid, and they came out and basically announced an ad. They came out and said, "Hey, here's the new promo," and then you got a full-on trailer for the Disney movie. Yeah, and then they did kind of the same thing with Warner Brothers doing the sort of history of movies thing, which really wasn't a history of movies. It was more sort of a promo for their streaming network. And so it was really kind of weird. I thought it was, it just really, it was jarring to me. And, you know, I mean, I pay more attention to that stuff than maybe the average bear, but yeah, it was very odd.
I got to tell you that I wasn't too impressed, and we have a lot of friends at Autodesk, but I was not impressed with the Autodesk. Did you get the whole thing from that?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Okay. I don't know if you have any comments on it, but
no, not necessarily. Yeah. I mean,
so anyway, short. Yeah. They basically, if I knew it right away where it was going, but, my wife was watching. She didn't see. She was out of the room for the first commercial. I had no clue what the second commercial was then. Because if you miss the first one, then you don't know. Like, what is this Autodesk? Like, is this a real person? Because they treated it that way. Elizabeth Banks was in it. And it just didn't play for me. I don't know.
The bear was funny though. The cocaine bear was funny though. I thought that was yeah.
This is the one comment that will go out with the show. My favorite thing that Jimmy Kimmel did in the beginning in the monologue was talking to Nicole Kidman and said and you know, because about our movie going habits, because my wife and I, we go to Tuesday discount AMC movies, and we have for a long time. And so when we go in, Nicole Kidman, before the movie starts, does this ad. And she goes in and she's like, how important the movies are for our existence and whatever. And basically it's an ad for getting people to the movies who are already at the movies. And Jimmy Kimmel made that point. And he said, thank God, Nicole Kidman, that you're there to get people to go to the movies who are already at the movies. And I'm like, thank God somebody said that, because every time it bothers me. Like, please, enough is enough.
Exactly.
So, anyways.
Exactly.
All
right. Let's get to our first story here, which is about the Silicon Valley Bank and the collapse of it. This happened Friday, literally, as we were going to air on our last show. It was happening. It happened over the weekend, and then sort of the remnants of it is happening this week. And we'll link to a show in the show notes from CNN, which the headline is Silicon Valley Bank collapse was driven by the first Twitter-fueled bank run. And this was why we're covering this, because there's a really interesting social media component to this whole scenario. The article opens up by saying the massive amount of customer withdrawals that led to the collapse of Silicon Valley Bank had all the hallmarks of an old-fashioned bank run, but with a new twist befitting the primary industry the bank served. Much of it unfolded online. Customers withdrew $42 billion in a single day last week from Silicon Valley Bank, leaving the bank with $1 billion in negative cash balance. The company said in a regulatory filing. And then the staggering withdrawals unfolded at a speed enabled by digital banking and were likely fueled in part by a viral panic spreading on social media platforms and reportedly in private chat groups. The article goes on to describe some of that and basically talked about how this is sort of a new phenomenon, basically in modern communications. And what made the Silicon Valley Bank run unique was the ease by which customers could execute withdrawals, and two, the speed of which news of the Silicon Valley Bank's impending demise spread. So it's a really interesting. This goes way beyond banking. This goes into marketing. This goes into how quickly a company can fail, or basically with anything, with the sort of mob rules idea. What do you take from this, if anything? And there's a really interesting thread on Twitter that was talking about this as well. But what's your take?
Yeah, I don't think that we're going to see a cascading bank failure, if you will. I mean, I made my point at the beginning. It's this. This is the reason why we diversify to a place, and I believe that having a little bit in Bitcoin is a good thing, and I want to support that effort because of the fact that there's sometimes some funny business that happens with the banks, and then you've got these bailouts, and maybe there's a bigger problem that's underlying it. I don't know. I mean, we're seeing SVP happen. We're seeing Credit Suisse is a big problem, which I think is a completely different thing. I think there's some shenanigans going on there. But the reason why you're seeing a strong run in Bitcoin right now is because it was made so that nobody can fiddle with it. It can't be messed with. It is an algorithm. And so that's why, not that I'm happy to see these things happen, but I'm happy there's an alternative. And I feel really bad for a lot of the people that had over 250,000. That's the FDIC insured number. And then there were a lot of people, the example I shared with you, that have a lot more in it. And it's scary if that happens to people.
Yeah, well, they're going to cover that.
I'm not a big fan of
the government's going to cover that.
Yeah, and I'm not a fan of what the Federal Reserve is doing right now. I think they were late to start, and then they pushed it too hard, and now you're in a point where you have these kinds of things happening because the rates rose too fast. And Silicon Valley Bank, which maybe people think it's for high-tech companies or venture or whatever, they did not do anything risky necessarily, and this happened.
No.
Rates changed so fast, and, I don't know.
Yeah, well, look, neither of us are financial or economists. So,
please, don't base any judgment on this.
But here's my take on that, which is I agree with you that in the scheme of life, it seems that from all the reading I've done, Silicon Valley Bank did not do anything that was terribly risky. What fascinated me, and this gets to that thread that was on Twitter and some of the other reporting that I've seen coming out of this, was how, look, whether you agree with what the Fed has been doing with regarding interest rates rising or not, they haven't been terribly secret about their their intentions, right? I mean, it's been pretty clear for the last 18 months that they were going to be raising rates significantly to fight inflation. So to suddenly come out and say, "Oh, we're so shocked that rates have gone up," then and they didn't get out of those low interest bonds earlier. There's a little bit of like, really, you didn't. But having said that, I don't even think that was the issue, because from all intents and purposes, from what I'm hearing, is that Silicon Valley Bank, I mean, literally after the run, I mean, if you can imagine a run on the bank, only being down $1 billion is they were pretty well capitalized. And so it feels like, for the most part, everybody's going to get their money out because they were capitalized well enough, and that really the shutdown is more to do with the fact that it just everybody, and that's the way banks work. I mean, not to put too fine a point on it, but this is literally the embodiment of it's a wonderful life, right? Where because Uncle Jack or whatever his name was lost $5,000 in the street, and basically then a rumor started, and then all of a sudden now there's a run on the savings and loan, and everybody wants their money out. And basically, what Silicon Valley Bank wasn't able to do was what Jimmy Stewart did, was talk to everybody and say, hey, just how much do you need this week, right? And really kowtow or ameliorate those fears. And that's, I think, where the social media factor comes in here, because this was VC driven, VC and startup driven. And so if they made a mistake, it was being so overweighted into a sector that has been, hugely hit, right? I mean, big surprise. The tech sector is not doing well at all at the moment. Losing anywhere between 60 and 80% of their value on Wall Street. But secondly, the communication here from Silicon Valley Bank was really what is at suspect here, because basically they went out and simultaneously sold all those bonds, and then basically went to Wall Street and said, hey, by the way, we're going to sell some new bonds to make up the difference. That's what spooked everybody. And everybody went, "Oh my gosh, you're selling new bonds as you're already taking a loss on the bonds that you're selling." Well, we're getting out, and then the mass hysteria begins. So it's a classic bank run, and it feels like the interesting thing to me is how the mainstream media is portraying all of this as, oh, it was the interest rates that drove them down and basically, collapsed them. I think, honestly, it wasn't the interest rates because, again, they had all sorts of advance warning that this was going to go on. It was the method by which they tried to look better in the eyes of Wall Street because their stock was tanking, and they had a classic run, and that was kind of it. Now, what's going on at Credit Suisse as a result of this and all of that, I think you're right. I think there's shenanigans going on there that probably was already going on, and it's just coincidence. But this is a real lesson for smaller regional banks that specialize in these kinds of services to niche audiences. It's a very interesting lesson for everybody.
Yeah, I don't know the insight. I don't know if I completely agree with what you're saying, that they took those short-term bonds and they could do anything with them since rates changed really quickly. I mean, we went through how long of a system of lower rates, no rate change, and then all of a sudden, boom, out of these, I don't know. What do I know? I think that the issue that I have is that you've got communications coming out of the government that don't make any sense. We have Janet Yellen saying, "Oh, we're not going to bail anybody out, including Silicon Valley Bank," and then the next day they come out and say, "Oh, yeah, we are going to bail them out." I'm like, what? And any kind of inconsistent like this, everybody says, "Oh, it's fear and crisis and whatever," and it's bigger than it is. So I'm just hopeful that maybe this is not that big of a deal, but I don't trust any banking system. Just don't.
Right. Well, they're not bailing out the banking system. I mean, to be clear, they're not bailing out Silicon Valley Bank. What they're doing is they're making the for the moment, until they sort everything out, they're making depositors who had more than $250,000 whole. Yeah. In other words, they're giving access to that money. They're giving access to those depositors who had money in the bank. And so, some of those VCs I'm sure had millions in there and in the bank. And so my understanding is that they're giving access to that money so that you can do things like make payroll and do all the things you need to do. And then they'll figure out how liquid the bank is and see where the dollars ultimately fall. Because I think what you'll find ultimately is that it will be very little ultimately, when we start talking the numbers in billions, it's obviously, it's kind of gets a little ridiculous, but I think they're going to find that the bank itself had enough liquidity to ultimately satisfy the depositors, how much risk there was in how much people had deposited with some level of shortfall, I'm going to guess. So, but not it's not zero or everything, right? It's somewhere in between.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know enough to comment any more than I have. I'm just, I think a plan of diversification is your best bet, and I'm not surprised at anything anymore. But just to your point, this is large banks from the stats that I've seen have more cash on hand than I think they've ever had in their existence. I mean, they are flush with cash right now, especially coming out of 2021.
And the thing is, the big banks, like Chase, for example, Chase is 12,000 times bigger than Silicon Valley Bank.
Yeah.
I mean, they're not a little bit bigger. They're 12,000 times bigger. So it's this, in the scheme of banks, yes, it's meaningful. They were the 16th or 17th largest bank, I think, in the U.S. And so it's meaningful, but there's a big jump between number 16 and number 4, 3, 2, and 1, right? It's the difference between a few $100 billion and trillions of dollars. So, yeah.
All right. Let's talk about some marketing stuff.
Yeah. Let's get stuff in here. So let's talk about Facebook here, because Facebook not having a great week. This article also coming to us via CNN, and the headline is "The Next AOL: Meta's Massive Layoffs Again Question About Zuckerberg's Strategy as the Company Morale Sinks." That's how Mark Zuckerberg described a memo, a challenging period in what the near future will be like for Meta employees after he announced the once impervious social media company will cut yet another 10,000 jobs in the months ahead. Zuckerberg, who has been conducting a review of the business, says he aims to execute on his so-called year of efficiency, outlined key changes that will be implemented across the organization, and more importantly, from a structural standpoint, Zuckerberg says he wants to flatten the company by removing multiple layers of management. The article goes on then to talk about the fact that it's going to be tough and that there is a layoff announcement that has happened this week and that there are sweeping changes necessary, according to Zuckerberg, in what he characterized as a deteriorating economy that will not soon heal. I definitely have a small take on this, but I'm curious to get yours with regard to Zuckerberg's comments and Meta and where they are. What do you think?
I think that this is a whole big bag of nothing is what it's Meta's okay, I'm reading this article from CNN Business. The next AOL, Meta's massive layoffs raise questions. They still haven't laid off the number of people. They still have more employees than they had before COVID. So
yeah, way more. Yeah, way more.
Way more. So they overhired. Business was so good, they started to bring people in. I read an article where there were people hanging around after product launches that didn't know what they were doing because were told that, like, what do I do? They're just standing. Yeah. Okay, they overhired. Great. Now you've got a more efficient Zuckerberg that's not throwing money at every kind of Web3 thing that's coming along or metaverse or whatever the case is. And and that's why you've seen their stock double in the last 2 months. Yeah. Because it's an efficient. Meta is probably a really solid company. I think this is really just good management right now. And he's saying, okay, well, it is pulling back. And by the way, I've been talking with a lot of companies that rely on sponsorships. We've looked at the sponsorship market. Sponsorships and advertising is way, way down in a lot of places because that's the first thing that gets pulled back in an economy where people aren't sure what's going on. It's not that the economy is bad. There's just uncertainty. And so people are pulling back advertising, and Meta's making a real strong decision, I think, here to be more efficient. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree with that at all. I think a lot of this gets overblown in terms of because of the headlines that the media can cover, sure, which is all about the layoffs,
fear,
the catastrophic. Anyway, I'm not even going to try and pronounce the word catastrophic news coming out of the mainstream media. But I think, but the one thing I would point out is that Zuckerberg continues to show me anyway that his messaging just is either tone deaf or just doesn't. He just, really the narratives that they put out are just not very good. I mean, Google is always famous for not being terribly good with the narrative that they create, in terms of their marketing and comms and all that stuff. And Zuckerberg is just this narrative that he's allowing to become public. It's just not working for me. I mean, the whole thing about I need to flatten the organization because there's too much management. I can tell you firsthand that that's not true. That Facebook is a very flat organization. There are a lot of people doing a lot of jobs, and so this is not a middle management problem. There may be a too many people problem, but it's definitely not the fact that he's got too middle management in there, which. And the funny thing is that the narrative there about that tells me, that's a leadership problem. In other words, what you're saying is that if you've got too much middle management, that's a leadership problem, not a hiring too many people problem. So, which is it, right? So, did you overhire or did you overpromote or both? Yeah. Or what's the problem? Because that's a leadership issue, not necessarily it got too exuberant about where we were going from a growth standpoint. So, anyway, somebody that's telling the story.
It's probably time for Zuckerberg to do a Bill Gates and to move out, become chairperson,
chief meta developer or
whatever.
Something like that.
Yeah, get a CEO in there. It's time. I mean, I'm impressed that he's lasted this long and they've been able to do what they've done. It's a really amazing unicorn story, one of a handful. So he's done an amazing job with what he's had. Now, move aside, do the projects you want to work on, the developer stuff, the metaverse stuff, whatever, and get somebody in there that, I mean, it worked really, really well for Microsoft. It worked really, really well for Google. So,
exactly.
Time,
I think that's.
I'm sure
exactly
that
right.
Mark is going to listen to us and make.
Oh yeah,
the
for
choice.
sure.
Pull
he's
the
a
trigger.
listener. He's a listener to this show.
Oh yeah, of
sure.
course. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
All
right.
Yeah.
Let's move on from this big bag of nothing, as Joe called it, and move on to a big bag of something, a big bag of money. That's for sure. T-Mobile is buying Ryan Reynolds' Mint Mobile for up to $1.35 billion. This is an amazing story. The article, which we'll link to, which comes from us courtesy of The Verge, basically opens up by saying T-Mobile is buying Mint Mobile, the budget-friendly mobile carrier that's partially owned by Ryan Reynolds. In a post published on Wednesday, T-Mobile announced that the deal's valued up to $1.35 billion and comes as T-Mobile looks to build out its prepaid phone offering. The acquisition should close later this year and involves a 39% cash and 61% stock purchase of Mint's parent company, Kaena Corporation. The price could change, however, as it depends on Mint's performance. Once the deal closes, Mint founders David Glickman, Rizwan Qasim will join T-Mobile to continue managing the brand, which T-Mobile says will generally operate as a separate business. Meanwhile, Reynolds will also remain a part of Mint's branding, as T-Mobile says he will continue in his creative role on behalf of Mint. I'd never dreamt I'd own a wireless company, and I certainly never dreamt I'd sell it to T-Mobile, Reynolds said in a tweet. Life is strange, and I'm incredibly proud and grateful. The article goes on to explain a little more details about the deal, but not a ton more, and talks about T-Mobile and its history of acquisitions and mergers and those sorts of things. So this, to me, is a marketing success story. I mean, this is truly elevating a brand to provide an exponential number on your sale price. I mean, this is, what do you think?
So it's a commodity. I mean, it's
right.
They took, he takes a bunch of nothing and makes it $1 billion plus value. He did the same thing with Aviator Gin, right? Was that the gin
right.
company sold for $600 plus $1 million? It's something that anyone can do. It's not proprietary information on how the whole thing works. Just creates a product that a lot of people already drink and says, we're going to differentiate this way. And they came out and they communicated differently. That's it. It's so simple. It's genius. And Ryan Reynolds is basically, if you look at any of the commercials, he's just himself. He's just Ryan Reynolds.
Exactly. Yeah, that's right.
It's a great model to follow.
Yeah, and great. They just do amazing creative. I mean, he's an incredible creative director when it comes to doing ads and campaigns and content and all of those things. He's with both of his brands. Well, he's got multiple brands, but certainly the Aviation Gin and the Mint thing is just the creative behind it has been wonderful. I mean, the elevation of brand here is, like you said, this is a commodity, and the fact that they've been able to elevate it to this level where it's worth more than $1 billion. By the way, it already relied on T-Mobile for the network. Like,
it's already. They don't even. Network. T-Mobile doesn't even have to integrate anything. It's just a different brand within.
It's just
T-Mobile.
Exactly. All he did was build a white labeled brand over the top of an existing network and made it super valuable. And now he gets to sell it for, now obviously he's got other partners and colleagues and all of that. And so
I'm sure he's only going to get a couple $100 million. So it's going to be
it's only going to be that
for him.
Yeah, exactly.
But I think the biggest deal that whenever we talk about it is when he sells Wrexham. Him and Rob McElhaney, who owned. Do you know the story behind that?
I know Wrexham? Some of the story. Yeah, it's a football team. Yeah.
Basically, I think they spent $2 million on that football team, and just so you know how that is working in our United States culture, I went to watch a Arsenal football match the other day, and there were 3 people there that had Wrexham shirts on. This is not even, it's like 5 leagues away from being in the Premier League.
That's
and
right.
They're that popular.
It's Ted Lasso League, right? It's that league.
Yeah, well, Ted Lasso is in the Premier League now. If the new Ted Lasso
Right.
just came out.
They got promoted. Yeah, they got promoted.
But this one is one below, one below, one below, one below, and one below that in the National League. Like not even in the pyramid of. So if they're going to be in the Premier League, they're going to have to win their division 6 years in a row. I think 5 or 6 years in a row to get to the Premier League.
Right.
Which I think is what they want to do. And again, it's just the way they're marketing it. They put the show together before this whole thing happened. There was a plan, a strategy. It's kind of brilliant.
It's yeah. It's really he's a fantastic and very talented marketer, and the fact that he's also devastatingly handsome is just really quite annoying, really more than anything else.
He's on my list.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Oh, okay. All right. He's on your list. All right.
Love me some
fantastic.
Ryan Reynolds. Tell you
There
that
you go.
right now.
All right. Just leave that there.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's move on to our next story here, which is, of course, about AI. Of course, we have to cover some level of AI. It is, after all, the hottest thing that's going on. This week, ChatGPT-4 came out and was released into the wild, as well as Google's new AI tools, which are also there. This will link to, in the show notes, an article from Digiday, which starts out by saying the flurry of news related to artificial intelligence might soon require people to have their own AI just to keep up and make sense of all the updates. Both Google and OpenAI rolled out new updates to their AI offerings yesterday, Google announcing new capabilities in the morning and OpenAI releasing its much-awaited ChatGPT-4 only a few hours later. With new APIs for developers and businesses, Google released new tools for generating text and images, and down the road, also audio and video. Along with new AI features for Gmail and Google Docs, there are specific new tools for marketers in Google Cloud to do brainstorming, copywriting, as well as generating emails and creative assets. Then, OpenAI revealed ChatGPT-4, the company's newest language model. The company says it's 40% more likely than its predecessor to produce factual responses and 82% less likely to respond with disallowed content, both areas of ongoing concern. The article goes on to really talk through a lot of the details here in terms of the way that each company is rolling out these things, especially OpenAI and ChatGPT-4. I've had a chance to play with it. I'm a paid, as we talked about last show, I'm a paid subscriber.
Why don't you talk about the difference between the new upgrade here? What's going on?
The upgrade, as I understand it, and the technology is a little above my head, but basically it's the ChatGPT-4 is exponentially bigger in terms of the learning model. And I forget exactly what they call it, but it's the number of ways that it can process information. So it's going to have the ability to process things like audio, video, images, as well as text, as well as go much exponentially deeper in terms of the way the learning model works, in terms of formulating qualitative responses back to you. So that's the layman's way of explaining it. And I've played with it, and I will tell you, I've done some of the same prompts that I did in ChatGPT-3, and you can see it.
It's noticeable?
It's noticeably better. Yes, it's noticeably better. I had it rewrite a abstract for a webinar that I've got coming up, and it was, I just said basically rewrite this abstract, which was maybe 150 words. Rewrite this abstract to be more clever and more clear, and then I put in quotes the 150-word abstract, and the result was amazing. The result was a much better abstract, honestly. I had to make a few tweaks to people's names and what their actual titles were and stuff like that. But yeah, it's as a starting point, it was really, really good. Yeah, it is a game changer for sure in terms of being able to write good original content or rewrite, which is how I like to use it, rewriting what I call constructive content, which is content that we have to write and we want to be clear, we want to be creative in some level, but it's not the thing, right? It's the thing about the thing. And whether abstracts or explanatory types of paragraphs or those kinds of elements of content that we want to create but aren't necessarily putting our original thought or wisdom or creativity into.
Yeah, I mean, it's the flavor of the week, month, and year, right? It's with what's going on with this thing. You're seeing so many either integrations or new businesses launching because of this, and this is natural. This occurs. I remember when content marketing took off. I mean, how many new content marketing companies and content marketing software, content marketing as a service were launched, and this is 10 times, 100 times that. So it's interesting to see that. So we'll see what happens in the next 12 to 18 months. It's obvious. I mean, all I did was I went to it and I asked it, the new version. I said, what should Joe Pulizzi's next book be about? That was my question, because I'm like, oh my God, it's so much better.
What did you get back?
So I have it in front of me. It says, as an AI language model, I cannot know what Joe Pulizzi's interests or plans are. However, it goes on, he may choose to write about topics related to this area. So basically, the future of content marketing, effective content creation, building a successful content marketing team, the business case for content marketing, and the intersection of content marketing and customer service.
It's interesting.
None of this I want to do, by the way. So
right, of course,
but it makes sense. It makes sense. That's what I came up with.
But that's
I always
the key.
Just go ask it stupid questions.
So what you just demonstrated is a great example, and I wrote about this for CMI and in a longish blog post where I talked about maybe I even mentioned it on the show where I combined. I used the Dr. Seuss idea of there's no one you-ier than you. Right, which is a happy birthday to you. It comes from that book. And that's the key. Only you can exist today, right? Only you can exist today. So only you can know what is really true, even though what ChatGPT came back with is accurate based on what has been, right? It's based on yesterday, based on years go by. The learning model can only look to the past. Only you can look to the future. So the fact that it knew how to describe relative to the odds about what your next book might be about. It's accurate. That's an accurate statement. However, it's not a true statement. In other words, it's not truth, because your truth is that who you are today is much different, and where you're going, only you can know. And that's the advantage that humans have over an AI engine, is that no one can be you-ier than you. And so you have to take that into account. And that's where our creativity, our wisdom, and our value will always shine through.
Yeah. And somebody asked me the other day, oh, Joe, the whole human and AI content thing, where's it going? I said, it's an amazing tool. If the tool works for you and your process and your content, great, use it. If it doesn't, don't. Right. It's a tool. It's an incredible tool, powerful tool. It'll get even more powerful. I don't know where it's going to go in 5 to 10 years, but right now, it's just a tool, folks.
Yeah, that's exactly it. So, it's just a tool.
Just a tool.
Just a tool. Just a tool. Yeah. There's a joke. There's a joke sitting right there, and I'm not even going near.
Who's the tool? You're a tool.
Who's number 2? Anyway, the 17-year-olds in us just came out. Okay, let's move on to our rants and raves.
Actually, you know what? Before we do rants and raves, I know we went through it as our key story last week, but you probably should just,
the breaking news about the. So
just mention it. It's just breaking news type of stuff, Yeah,
it is. It actually is, because it literally came out last night. Well, here it comes, right? So it's the U.S., I guess, has threatened to ban TikTok. I mean, yet again, if TikTok's, but this is the new part, if TikTok's Chinese owners don't sell their stake into ByteDance.
Ultimatum.
I think it's very interesting here. So the Biden administration is demanding that TikTok's Chinese owners sell their stake in the video sharing app or face a possible U.S. ban of the app, which is a kind of a silly statement, right? Because they're not going to do that. According to people familiar with the matter, the move represents a major shift in policy on the part of the administration. Does it really? Is that a major shift in policy? Anyway, a major shift in policy on the part of the administration, which has been under fire from some Republicans who say it hasn't taken enough stance to address the perceived security threat from TikTok, owned by Beijing-based ByteDance. So the article goes on in some length. This is a Wall Street Journal article, by the way, if I didn't mention that, to talk about the sort of high stakes game being played here with TikTok, and basically the TikTok CEO has come back literally today as we speak and said, yeah, if we sell, that doesn't solve your security concerns. Exactly my point from last week, and so that this is a little bit of gamesmanship going on here.
Yeah,
but I love
that's exactly
your take.
what it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, go ahead.
Yeah.
You keep going.
I'm done. I wanted to get your take.
Oh.
I mean, I have a little bit more, but go ahead. I want to make sure that.
Oh yeah, I didn't. I was just saying. I think this is definitely positioning. A little bit back and forth. I don't think this is going to be imminent. We talked about I really believe there's another trigger that has to happen, but this is the natural pushing on of. All right, the U.S. wants something to happen and can't just say it all at once and just keeps getting stronger and stronger and more things behind it, and the tension is rising, and then something else is going to happen. I still think that we're weeks, months, many months probably away from something happening. But yeah, we called this, and here it is. Here we go.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and the interesting thing to me is, so we had one of our listeners, hi out there, you know who you are. We had a bit of an email debate about this because he was taking you and I to task about the discussion we had about the bill going too far in terms of the ban on TikTok, and was really suggesting that the bill, as flawed as it might be, but banning TikTok is a good thing. And what I was saying back to him was, great. We and I don't know if you agree with this as well, but I'll just tell you what my point of view on it was. I said, yes, fine. I don't care, honestly, if Biden or anybody bans TikTok. That's coming. However, this bill is not the way to do it. This bill is ridiculous at its face. And I actually then went, because I know you did actually read part of the bill, and I went and actually read the bill. And it's, it is silly. That bill is just silly in terms of how broad it is. And, one of the things that the bill actually says in the middle of it is, here are all the covered entities. It includes any government, any labor union, any state, any company, any person, basically anybody that the government deems is providing harm or national security risks to can be banned under this bill. And it is just so broad and so just overly weird in the way that it's written. I just think it's not a good bill. So our point and my point was, yes, I think Biden should be able to, right? But don't, for all these political Congress critters out there, don't hide behind a thing going, oh, well, it's the law that said that they were banned. No, come out and say, I want to ban TikTok specifically, and only TikTok, because of security or whatever the rationale is. That's the message there, because otherwise we should be talking about everybody else. We should be talking about Facebook. We should be talking about Twitter. We should be talking about Instagram. We should be talking about anybody who has an algorithm that can ultimately sway public opinion.
Well, but it is different because this is owned by the Chinese Communist Party. So
agreed, but the bill basically says that it could be anybody.
Well, no, I mean, we're on the same page. It's so wide ranging. It wasn't meant to, but I think that's the problem that you and I have with it. It's just so broad. It was meant to be only for China and Iran and I think North Korea or whatever the case was. But just breaking news here as well, just an hour before we got on here, the UK has officially banned TikTok off of their government devices. So that is so again, back to the point, all these things are just dominoes set up for culmination of something to happen. And it's just going to be interesting to see what I think something is going to happen this time, as opposed to when Trump got behind it the last time and it just fizzled. I don't think this is going to fizzle.
Yeah, I agree with you. All right, now let's get to our rants and raves section, and see what we've got going on here. So, do you want to go first?
Yeah, I'll go first. Mine's really quick. Real quick here.
Right.
So, Everything, Everywhere, all at once. You watched it, correct? Did you see the movie?
I did. I have not seen the movie yet. No.
Oh, you have not seen the movie?
I have not seen the movie yet.
Doesn't matter. But regardless if you loved it or hated it, it was the most interesting movie that I saw of the year. It won 7 Oscars, including Best Picture last week. And the interesting part, I just went into the backstory a little bit, and this is what I think where I think the story is for what I want to talk about. The Daniel Scheinert collaboration that started this whole movie was really a passion project that began in the year 2010. So that's 13 years ago. So just a quick timeline to talk about it. So in 2010, they began the project. They didn't start production on the whole thing till 8 years later, 2018. Principal photography was in 2020. The film premiered at South by Southwest in 2022. And of course, 2023, 13 years later, receives the Oscar for Best Picture. And my point here is just to say, for all you content creators, storytellers out there, it's a really fresh reminder not to give up if you believe in your story. The most important skill for a content creator is by far patience. And I know many talented people who know how to tell incredibly and emotional stories, but unfortunately most give up way too soon. They go a year, maybe 2. They just don't have the patience to last. And I mean, heck, everybody who listens to this knows my story. I mean, I was about ready to give up in 2009. It just wasn't working. We were losing money. Luckily, we were patient, and then Content Marketing Institute was born as we got this whole thing going. So you may have a great idea and you may have a lot of stories to tell, but it's impossible to know when the date will be where the stars align. So I just love this example of how they stuck with it. It was a passion project. They believed in it. They stuck to their guns and wanted certain things in it. And 13 years later, they've got the Oscar. So that's the story.
That's exactly, No, they've done it. And fun fact, did you know that directing team was the, now I totally just blanked on the rap video that they did. It used to be one of the key songs that you used to play at Content Marketing World. God, what's the name?
I don't know either. I don't know.
Yeah, I'll try and look it up here. Anyway, let me just do mine real quickly here, and then
okay, I'll look it up while you do yours. I'll look it up.
Yeah.
Okay.
You do. You'll know exactly. Just look up the directing team and their first rap video. It's a very famous rap video. Anyway, so yeah, mine is. I just want to rave a bit. I just finished The Last of Us, which I knew the story. I knew because I'm very familiar with the video game. And so I just want to give a huge rave and a recommendation for it as a series. Just incredibly layered. It's very rare that a video game has that level of depth in terms of ethics and emotions and character development and backstory and all the kinds of things that you would expect in a great drama. And what the team did in terms of translating it and being so very faithful to the game, and which says something about how faithful they could be and not have to invent a bunch of stuff. But have the creative ability to invent a few things, especially one of the episodes, which those of you who have seen it will know exactly which episode I'm talking about. But to sort of finish the way it finished, which was, again, very faithful to the game, and leave us with a very interesting debate and or questions and or what it really means to be a hero. It was just really, really, really good, and I couldn't rave enough about it. I just really loved it and thought it was fantastic. So there you go.
Yeah, and I never, on your recommendation, I watched. I thought it was an excellent series, and the storytelling in it just tremendous. I don't know anything about the video game, but okay, you ready? I got the answer for you.
Yeah.
Lil Jon and DJ Snakes.
That's it.
Turned down for what?
Turn
Video.
down for what? That's a turn down for what?
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
I did not realize that they did a bunch of videos. They did videos for Tenacious D. And a bunch of other people as well.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
it is
very talented pair.
It's amazing to see that. So I would recommend. Yeah, I would recommend watching the movie for everyone again. I know some people that absolutely hated it, but I've never seen a movie quite like it. So it's so original. Jeez.
Yeah.
And it is science fiction, folks. So it's not like this is, you're not going to be watching Pride and Prejudice or anything. So.
Yeah. There you go.
There you go. So.
There you go. All right. What do you got this week?
Still we're 2 weeks away from Creator Economy Expo early bird deadline. So we're just trying to, folks, cex.events, use coupon code TOM to get $200 off. Would love to see you all there. And, I've got my marathon training that I've been doing as well. I got a 20-mile run coming up on Sunday. So,
oh, wow.
It's part
Holy
of my
smokes.
Part of my training, and
that's
it's funny because
crazy.
I was talking with my wife yesterday, and she put her hand on mine. She said, "I'm so glad that you're only going to do one marathon." So just making sure I understand that I'm not going to do this training again. So
that's
so funny.
I'm very proud for you because that's incredible. That's an incredible accomplishment and an amazing thing. Yeah.
Thank you. We'll see how see how it goes. April 23rd.
Oh, you're going to be great. You're going to be
April 23rd. We'll have some fun with it. How about yourself? What do you got going on?
Well, I'm not going to be running a marathon, that's for sure. But working on trying to get getting a little bit away this weekend for some much needed R&R time, but then back again next week. Really diving back into it. It's a busy couple of weeks here and sort of trying to get everything organized and all that. And then looking forward to, of course, getting ready for CEX. So yeah, the all hashtag all the things is what we're working on this week.
Busy times, good stuff.
Busy times.
All right.
Busy times, good stuff. All right. Well, everybody, thank you so much for listening. And by the way, I forgot to do it again before Rants and Raves. If you want to get over to our site, do it, won't you? thisoldmarketing.site. We'd love for you to give us the voicemails, send us emails. We love getting those voicemails and emails and story ideas and all those things. But until we see you again next week, remember, it is your story to tell. Tell it well. We'll see you next week on This Old Marketing.